she peaked with this. And if you're trying to peak, I think you should read 6. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about my favorite books of all time. And before I do that, though, before we jump right into the books, I want to give a couple of disclaimers. Okay, the first disclaimer is the fact that these are all of my favorite books of all time. This does not include manga, this does not include manhwa, literature, hard print books. Okay, no ebooks, hard print books. That has nothing to do with my favorite books of all time. It's just kind of how it flowed. Anyways, my favorite books do not equal 5 stars. Some of these might be 3 stars, some of these might be 2 stars. There could be a 1-star book on this list, but it could be one of my favorite books of all time just because how it ended up getting into my hands and how I felt reading it at a point. Okay, I also want to say that these could be clouded by bias. They could be clouded by nostalgia because I have not read all of these books in the past 2 to 3 years. I read these books in a combination of me reading as a juvenile, a youth, a young adult, and a man as I am now. Okay, lastly, I want to say the way that I look at my favorite books and the way that I generally mentally rate books is the 4P process, okay, or the 4P framework. I used to talk about this in a lot of videos back in 2022 and I stopped because it seemed too analytic, but this is kind of how I think about it. I look at the people of the books, I look at the places, I look at the prose, and I look at the power system. Okay, those are the 4 things I look at, and if I enjoy all of those, it might be a favorite book of all time, or it might just be a good book. I might give it 4 stars, etc. Okay, that's it. So without further ado, let's just jump into the books, and these are in no specific order, so I'll just start from the top here. And the first book, Warrior Cats. Okay, let me tell you guys something about me. Okay, I'm allergic to cats. I've only touched 1 cat in my life. When did I find these books? In middle school. When did I touch the first cat in my life? Senior year graduation, when I went to my friend's house and tried to hold their cat and it jumped out of my arms. This year I found out I'm allergic to cats. So you can understand my frustration and my upsetment about loving this series about cats and potentially never being able to be around one again in my life. Listen, you can't go wrong with reading about cats in the wild, fighting each other, getting together, having clans, traveling, world building, interactions between cats, the perspective of a cat, the perspective of a wild cat, not a house cat, not a fat cat, a wild cat. Okay, you don't know what that did to a 12-year-old Arish. 12-year-old Arish was so hyped, he made a card game about it. That's a video for a different time. But I made a card game about this. My friend and I made a card game about this because we were so entranced with the world. I would highly recommend you check out this series specifically. This is the 4th series. This is the 4th season of the series. They have 6 book seasons as they come out. This is the 4th one, by the way. I don't have all of them. I kind of want to collect them. I'm not sure. I do want to go back and read them all and talk to you guys, but I haven't read these since middle school. I have not picked these up since middle school. So this is where the nostalgia factor is already coming in. We got to talk about the Bone Shard trilogy, okay? Not the Drowning Empire trilogy, the Bone Shard trilogy. Imagine giving you 6 to 7 different POVs and only one of them matters, but yet I cared about every single one of them. That is a lie. I cared about maybe 3 of the POVs in this series, not all of them. But why is it a favorite series of all time for me? Because this book specifically solidified one of the main characters, Jovis, as one of my favorite male protagonists, male main characters of all time. Because of the shit that he went through in this book, there's a term I like to coin with this book. It's called free Jovis. Like if you think of the Bone Shard trilogy, the Drowning Empire series, you should also think of the term free Jovis, and you can only understand that after you finish reading this book. The Warrior Heir series, okay, I read this in my youth, in my young adult phase in high school, probably late middle school, early high school. I found The Warrior Heir, and Jack Swift, similarly, the male protagonist in this book, became one of my favorite of all time because he's just a freaking G, okay? This is my quarterback. This is my team leader. When I put on my Letterman, I put it on for Jack Swift, okay? When I'm on the marching band, when I'm in marching band and I'm on the field playing in the halftime show, I'm playing for Jack Swift, okay? I'm not playing for my bullshit high school quarterbacks. I'm playing for Jack Swift from The Warrior Heir. Plus, this series introduced me to Cinda Williams Shima, who is my favorite author of all time. You need to read this book. This is not discourse. This is not a conversation. This is not a back and forth. This is a command. You need to read this book. You need to read how Jack Swift goes from a normal high schooler to a badass magic swordsman motherfucker. Okay, you need to read how that happens. And then come back and tell me, Arish, thank you for telling me to read Warrior Heir. It was one of the greatest things I've ever read in my life. Okay? I've talked about ad nauseum on this channel how The Ranger's Apprentice is one of the greatest series of all time. It's indirectly a cozy fantasy. If you really think about it, it's just a cozy fantasy because it has no magic. It's generally low stakes, but it's written beautifully. I love every single one of the characters. To be honest, if there was a world I could pick to be in, this would be in the top 3 fantasy worlds that I would that I would want to be in. Even though there's no magic in this world. Imagine that, right? Arish, a mage, not wanting to be in a mage world? Yes, that's how good this series is. That's how good these books are. This is why this, and okay, The Siege of Mason Dao is actually the worst book out of the entire 10 book like series, but it's just the only one I have. My favorite book out of the actual 10 book series is Eric's Ransom. I believe it's book 3 or book 4, but that is one of the best books in the entire series. It just has a lot of character growth and world building and just, once again, character growth and solidification of the characters that it just makes sense. It's just that good. The Ranger's Apprentice. You should read this book. You should read this book. Thank you. We're gonna save this one for last. Coming to a set of books that have become my favorites just in the past 2 years when I have reinvited reading into my life after casting out gaming from my life. I had to bring back in reading from my life because I can't do both at the same time. Oh, I already spoiled one of them. Fourth Wing. Okay, I know what y'all think about Fourth Wing. I do know what y'all think about Fourth Wing. I know how the entire internet feels about Fourth Wing because people won't shut up about it. And I'm one of them. I'm one of them who won't shut up about it. Here's the thing. Fourth Wing is not a literary masterpiece. Anybody who's telling you so is obviously lying and they're just saying it for exaggeration. But what Fourth Wing is a fun ass book. And if you're looking for a place to empty your brain and read some fun ass dialogue, fun ass banter, dope ass dragons, cool ass magic system, Magic Academy, you should just read Fourth Wing. That's really the crux of the matter. It doesn't matter if it's not the best book you ever read in your life. It's one of my favorite books. I recommend it to everybody because it's just fun. It's really fun. And if you don't like fun, why are you reading? Do you hate yourself? Because if you do, I have books for you specifically if you hate yourself. If you want to know those books, you should let me know down below. And then I might make a video on that. I'll give you one for free right now. It's called Seeker. If you hate yourself, read that book. That being said, if you don't hate yourself, you should read Fourth Wing. We're also gonna leave this for the end. Everybody and their mother on TikTok was telling me about this series when I was reading it over there. I started with Shadow and Bone, I went over to King of Scars, I came back to Six of Crows. Now, generally you would think with the way I've talked about King of Scars and Rule of Wolves, you would think, oh Arish, why is Rule of Wolves not on your favorites list? You love Zoya Nazielinski so much, you're horny for a dragon lady. I'm like, that's not true. Cut that out. That's not true. I love the Six of Crows series, not because of Nina Zen. Six of Crows is probably my favorite dark fantasy in a sense. It's not necessarily a dark fantasy, but it does have morally great characters, a very gray plot along the board. You do see a lot of character relations. You see a plethora of very diverse, unique characters. Not all of them make it to the end, and you know, maybe I do like stories where people die. Six of Crows is collectively almost everybody's favorite book out of the entire Grishaverse, and it's one of their favorite fantasy books of all time in general because Leigh Bardugo really just hit the nail on the head with this series. This duology specifically. Fuck Shadow and Bone. King of Scars was great. She peaked with this. Okay? She peaked with this. And if you're trying to peak, I think you should read Six of Crows. Man. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had to. The joke was right there. The joke was right there and I had to, okay? The joke was right there and I had to. An honorable mention for one of my favorite books of all time is Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. Haha, gotcha, baited you. Not all of these were fantasy books. One of these was a self-improvement, self-help book because I needed it in my life to build this fucking YouTube channel that isn't going. Anyways, enough of that rant. Now I need to talk about my favorite book of all time. This is the only one that I will say that is in order. It is my favorite book of all time, The Demon King Sword of Kaigen. Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. I can't choose between these two anymore. I have lost the ability to choose between these two books for my favorite book of all time. And I will tell you why. But I will start with The Demon King because I think it's only fair to start with my previous favorite. Demon King is tied for my favorite book of all time, specifically because it has literally everything that I want in a book. It has people, Han Alistair, Raisa Anamariana, Eamon Byrne, Mika Bayer. You have a lot of really cool, interesting characters in this series. And I love Cinda Williams-Chima for writing them as such. Han Alistair is not necessarily my favorite character. My favorite character is actually Eamon Byrne from this series, but Han Alistair's right behind him. Okay, my boy Cuffs is right behind him. Okay, my straight edge Eamon Byrne is right there. This book gave me everything that I needed to read as a 15-year-old. When I was going through school and when I was either bored or going through a rough patch or had any sort of issues, this was my safe space. This was my comfort space. Okay, I've read this specific book 4 times because every time the new one came out, from the time I found this one, I reread this one, then read the rest. Reread this one, then read the rest. And it held up. That being said, I do want to acknowledge that my nostalgia bias might be coming in here because I haven't read this book since high school. That's a lie. I'm pretty sure I read these at one point in college. I think I read these at one point in college. My memory is really fading me right now. I should probably get off the Xans. Demon King is tied for my favorite book of all time, but I have to read it again just to let you guys know, did it hold up? From young adult Arish's memory to now mid-20s Arish's preferences in books. Did this book hold up? I don't know what to tell you. You're really missing out. I rarely tell people like, oh, you're missing out on this book because everybody has their own preferences. Everybody has their own like desires and such. I will tell you, you're missing out if you haven't read this book. And there are people online that will echo my same opinion. And if you're one of those people, let's collab. Let's hang out. Let's chat. Let's be friends. Is it toxic to not talk to people who haven't read The Demon King? Imagine you're reading a book that's called The Demon King and there's not even demons in the book. There's not even a king in the book. There's a queen. But that's why the book is so good and you have to figure out why. You need to read it to find out why there's no demon or no king. But there's a demon king. I don't know what to say about this book anymore. I feel like what's already been said about this book has been said about the book. And I don't know how else to talk about it to people who haven't read it. So there's a reason why Sword of Kaigen is one of my favorite books of all time, right? Because it did in a book something that I have never read before reading this book, okay? So when I say a book sort of Kaigened a character, essentially what that means is it completely diverts your expectation of what the book is supposed to be halfway through. You think it's one thing and it completely pivots. Most of the books that I like and the series that I like, as you can tell, they're all series. Like I was talking about my favorite books of all time, but they're all books in a series. None of these was standalone, obviously, except for Show Your Work. None of these was a standalone book. This is my favorite, tied for my favorite book of all time as a standalone book, because there's never going to be a continuation of the Sword of Kaigen unless there's continuation fan fiction. And I have not delved into fan fiction. I don't know if I ever will delve into fan fiction, but as of now, I have not delved into fan fiction. I think about The Whispering Blade and Mamoru Matsuda every week. Quite literally every single week, I'm thinking about this book, and I read it 2 years ago. Actually, sorry, I read it a year ago. I read it last year, but I've thought about it every single week, almost every single day since then. Because Sword of Kaigen is just that good. It's the tale about the coming of age of a young man. It's the tale about a mother trying to create a new life for herself and running away from her past, only to then accept her past and try and use that to move forward to protect her family. Like, I think the Whispering Blade is probably one of the coolest techniques in any book because of this book. And I would take a Whispering Blade to my ankles for Emma Wang to give me more of this series. I would take 1,000 cuts to my pinky toe for Emma Wang to give us more of this book. And that's never gonna happen, which means I never have to give up my ankles or my pinky toe. But I would. I just need you to know that I would do that for this series. Not just for me, for you. I would do that for you. Because you need more of this book just like I do. We all need more of this book. Okay, it's not just for me, it's for all of us. I would give up my ankles for us. For you and me. And if that isn't poetry, then what is? That being said, these were my favorite books of all time. I really do appreciate you guys listening thus far. I would love to know what your favorite books of all time are, even if there's 15 of them, or 5 of them, or 1 of them, or you've yet to find your favorite books of all time. I would love to know yours. If you want me to talk about anything else, please let me know. If you're new here, drop a like, okay? If you're not new here, you know what to do, okay? Leave a comment, drop a like, send this to somebody who might enjoy. And next time, I'll be back to entertain you more about books, all right? Keep reading, keep turning the page. Talk to you later.